one of the things you reached out to me, you said to me, I got a DM from you and you said, Ken, I'm so concerned about the lack of resilience and toughness in this country. And I'm just trying to wake parents up because it's that lady is a product, to your point, she hadn't seen it in 10 years, but we have allowed the wussification of our country to take place, and it's going to catch up with us.
It's already caught up, but I don't even blame Karen, because Karen, let's just say, this is not the case in my situation, but let's just say Karen is 30 years old. Like, Karen grew up in it.
I agree.
So she doesn't even know.
Right.
By the way, I could give you 20 stories. Like, somehow I attract Karens, but I've been hit
because your kids were doing hard things in public. That you're an outrage.
I'm an outrage. And so because of that, I created something called Death Camp for kids. And,
so I'm sorry, hold on a second. This is too beautiful. This is a thing called Death Camp.
It's called Death Camp.
Oh,
it's I purposely did it for Karen, and it's on the farm in Vermont. And I don't really market it a ton. It's certainly not the right branding to attract a lot of people.
No, you're going to be on 2020 if you keep it up.
But I wanted to have our children, our 4 kids, needed something really tough, like a tough camp.
Yeah.
And I couldn't trust that any camp would be tough enough. So we created it on our farm in Vermont. And it's basically like if they're going through Hell Week, to become Navy SEALs. It is torture. I mean, these kids will hike over 50 miles. They'll do 300 rope climbs, thousands of burpees, ice cold water every morning at 5 a.m. They're getting screamed at. I've got mountain warfare instructors. They're treated like adults that are about to graduate to become Navy SEALs. And the reason I bring it up is I don't want anybody else to sign up for it, because I'm just doing it for my kids and like 50 other kids.
Right.
Because if I got to deal with the parents, like they ask me a million questions, I don't just better off not sending the kid. Like, this is like, like, I don't need this. This is for me.
Yeah.
So, but the reason I bring it up is the kid, because it goes back to the first question you asked. The kids are so resilient and so tough.
Yeah.
The thing that gets in the way are you and I, are the parents.
That's right.
Like, even though I talk a big game, you talk a big game, like I'm still not a good enough parent. Like, my kids should still do more than they do.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
So what I see at this camp is unbelievable. Like, any adult that I've had come out, and when I say an adult, like let's say a 20-year-old shows up because some parent says, we're going to send my 20. Yeah, fine. Send your 20-year-old, 21. They quit right away, like within 6 hours, because they can, because they have a car, they have a way out.
Right.
The young kids can't leave. Right. They have no way out.
Right.
And so they are, the volume of work that these kids do, and they won't cry. They won't complain until they get to talk to their parent.
Right.
And you could watch it. Like, this young girl last year, friend of a friend, Matilda, tough as nails. She's making it through, right? I have no issue. And then somebody gives her an iPad to have a conversation with her mom.
Yeah.
As soon as she sees her mom, she starts crying uncontrollably.
Right.
And thank God I know the mom. I grab the device, I take it away from Matilda, and I say, listen, I said, I got to tell you, you got to trust me. She was fine 12 seconds ago. Sooner you just have to disconnect. I had one dad who's a friend of mine who's more like with your mindset, Brian. Brian says to me, listen, tell my daughters that my wife and I died and not to call us anymore, because I was letting them use the phone at night and they were just constantly trying to leave the camp. They weren't showing me that. They were fine with all the other kids, but as soon as they had access to a phone, they were calling mom and dad, get us out of here. This guy's crazy. I don't want to be here. Tell my daughters we died. I went in. Yeah, I went in. I said, hey, girls, bad news. Parents died. No way out. Buckle up. Right. And
there'll be a memorial service once you get back. Don't worry.
Once you get back.
Wow.
I was dead serious, by the way. I know anybody listening says I'm a crackpot, but the girls transformed. One of those girls has gone on to become national champion wrestler. She was soft as pie, but when she got there, the other one is tough as nails. She was crying. Like, they've completely transformed.
Wow. Yeah. It's unbelievable. All right. So I want to stay on your path. So when do you get a clear path or an idea that puts you on the path that you're on today? What did it look like? Was it fairly straight for you? Was there some meandering? What did that look like to get into the profession you're in now?
So I tell everybody, like, if you want to do anything big in your life, really worthwhile, you have to figure out your why. Why are you doing it? Your purpose, your North Star, your true North. And that can change through life. So when I think about those first, 14 years of my life, it was I tough enough? Could I hang with all these guys? Right. So that was my why. And I was just trying to be tougher and tougher and tougher. The next 10 years of my life became, I want to make money. How do I make money? That'll make me happy. While I was making money and I was stressed out on Wall Street and fighting, knife fighting every day and not feeling great, I stumbled upon adventure racing. And I went out because it sounded exciting, kind of like carrying rocks around the neighborhood or sweat, whatever. I went out and competed in one of these 3-hour races. And I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I feel fantastic. And I started roping everybody I knew into doing it. I mean, I'm one of those connectors. And before you know it, I had 100 people doing these things. I was putting on races, and the crazier the race was that was being held anywhere in the world, I had to go do it. And the more I did, the more alive I felt, the better I felt. And many of those races were, 2 weeks long, self-supported out in the middle of nowhere, freezing. And you have a lot of time to think. And I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So I started thinking, gee, wouldn't it be awesome to have a business where I get to do this? And so in 2000, 23 years ago, as I was still on Wall Street, I started to play around and dabble and put on races. And, 23 years ago, my first race I put on was 350 miles long in the British Virgin Islands. And so very few people showed up. It was some of the worst storms the British Virgin Islands had experienced ever. I ended up literally losing a guy. I found out at the end of the race, they hadn't seen this guy that worked for us. It wasn't even a participant. And I said, what do you mean you haven't seen him? And they said, well, he had cut his leg and we were setting ropes on this coastal section of rock. And we told him to go back to Tortola to go get stitches. And we last saw him on a dinghy, on a little rowboat, boat with a little motor in the back. Anyway, that was 8 days earlier from the moment I'm hearing about this for the first time.
Oh, no.
And all these terrible storms had rolled in. So my dad is down there. My dad is seeing me put on my first race, British Virgin Islands. He hears about this guy we lost, and he's like, hey, you got to be careful because in the British Virgin Islands, the law may accuse you of a criminal act because you were negligent. So we got to handle this really carefully. Not only we have to find the guy, but we got to make sure you don't end up in jail. So I call the Coast Guard. Believe it or not, I get Richard Branson's helicopter and pilot, and we start searching for this guy. And the Coast Guard lays out their maps and they triangulate and they look at the way the ocean had moved, and they find him 150 miles away on a deserted island, little Tobago.
Oh my God.
And he's alive.
Oh.
And we bring him back and he's just like, hey, can we go eat? I'm starving.
I need a cheeseburger. Don't judge me, Joe. I need a double cheeseburger.
No, but thank God it was one of our crew, because anybody who works for one of these crazy events is typically that kind of a person that could survive on an island.
Yeah.
But the point is that I had no business after that doing a second race.
Right.
It was written up in Sports Illustrated as like true survivor. I couldn't get that many people to compete. The format that I was promoting, 300, it was just too much for anybody to swallow.
I'm guessing you lost money on it too.
Oh my God, I lost money on that. And then for the next nine or 10 years, I kept putting on these crazy events and I kept losing money. And by 2010, after the financial crisis, towards the tail end of the 2009 financial crisis, I said, that's it, I'm done. It's irresponsible. I'm losing too much money. This is stupid. I'll take one more stab at it. We'll call it Spartan. I'm going to change it to 3 miles, 8 miles, 13 miles, and we'll just see what happens. But if I lose another 50 grand, I'm out.
Right.
And 700 people showed up, which was more people than I had in the entire 10 years preceding.
Okay, so I want to stop there because there's some great stuff for our audience to learn here. You take one more shot. What you look back on it now, was it the format change? And then what led to that? If your last shot, you changed something. What made this one work when all the others didn't? What'd you learn?
Well, a couple of things. One is, this is really important for everybody to listen to. The human brain, our brains, I'm very lucky. I get to do a lot of podcasts like yourself, and I get to talk to a lot of smart people.
Right.
I did not know what I'm about to say. I did not know that our brains avoid discomfort, avoid change, avoid anything hard at all costs, because throughout our history on the planet, the brain views those things as threats.
Yep.
The brain doesn't want us to freeze to death or melt in the desert. So anything that's going to require a lot of energy or is hard, we shy away from subconsciously. We don't even know our brains are doing it. In the morning, when you're committed to working out, notice that your brain subconsciously will have you check the news, will have you check social media, will have you go get a cup of coffee, all things you don't need to do, all in an effort to get you not to go to the gym, which is going to expend a lot of energy and be dangerous for the brain. So anyway, I didn't know all that. And so it was very hard for me to make the change. Throughout those 10 years, my brain kept telling me, hey, Joe, this is what you know. 300 miles, hardcore, crazy stuff. This is what we do. This is what the world needs. In 2010, maybe after the financial crisis, it had hurt me a lot. I was a little more open-minded to, okay, we'll try a different path. 10 years of stubbornness. We'll try a different path. We're going to do something that's a little more inclusive. I'll set the bar a little lower. And it'll be military inspired. Maybe that'll be intriguing, because think about all those years our military had been fighting in the Middle East, and there's lots of folks coming back, lots of veterans. Anyway, the other thing, social media was becoming popular at that point in time. Social media was not popular for the 10 years preceding. So right time, right format, the ability to market on social media, and boom, 700 people show up. And then it was a bit serendipitous. I was at that first event with the 700 people, and I happened to have a guy with me that worked for Discovery Channel. And he was much more thoughtful than I was. He was looking at it as if this was a TV show. Would this work on TV?
Right.
And so he was studying what was going on differently than I was. I was studying everything like, all right, did that obstacle fail?
Right.
Did we collect enough registration money? You know what I mean? Yeah. He was looking at the spirit of the event. And he said, do you see what's happening here? I said, no, what's happening? He goes, these people are changing in front of us. You see, look at them on the start line and look at them at the finish. And so his discussion with me led to, oh my God, there's something here. And then that led to a second race and a third race. And here we are 13 years after that moment.
And now television shows and, multiple things and books, best-selling books.